I'd like to kind of go over everything when we have new people. So we're going to go through the roles. The general evaluator tonight is Maurice. Maurice, can you give us kind of a snapshot of the general evaluator?
Yes, the general evaluator will give a report of the meeting in general, and then the general evaluator will introduce the two evaluators for the speeches, along with the grammarian to do the grammarian's report and the timer to do the timer's report.
Okay, thank you, Maurice. And Mike, you want to talk about the grammarian's position?
Sure. So as the grammarian for tonight's evening, I'll be looking for ums, ahs, as well as crutch words that people use, sort of kind ofs, sort ofs, and other things that I don't know anyone falls into a bad habit of. And I will also be looking out for the word of the day, which would you like me to introduce?
Yeah, sure.
The word of the day is nefarious, an adjective, and that is extremely wicked or villainous, iniquitous, nefarious.
Thank you, Mike, for that. And welcome, by the way. Next, we have the timer. Ewing, can you tell us the timer's role?
Timers speaker control that time. The speaker, the green one is 5 minutes, yellow is 6 minutes, red is 7 minutes. For the table cover, green is 1 minute, yellow is 1:30, red is 2 minutes. For the evaluator, green is 2 minutes, yellow is 2:30, red is 3 minutes.
All right, thank you, Ewing, for that. And the evaluators will, I'll just go ahead and say that, they will evaluate each speech. So the first evaluator will be evaluating Rin's speech, and the second will be evaluating Lawrence Pock. And at this point, we'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everyone will be seated. Okay. All right, so we have a good overview of what the meeting holds for us tonight. I will now like to introduce our first speaker. Rin, you're doing what? It's number 5, speech number 5?
Yes.
Okay, what's the title of the speech?
Times are a-changing.
Times are changing, okay. And Rin's really been rolling through his speeches. He joined us recently, he's already number 5, surpassing some of our members that have been here quite a bit longer. So he's on track to get his competent communicator shortly. So let's welcome Rin.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I want to talk with you, not at you. So if you have any comments or questions, please interject them. As this speech, we'll be talking about how the world is changing. The world is changing. Times now are much different than they were 10, 25, 10, 15, 20 years ago. In the biggest sense is in the way that we consume content, the way that we get our news, the way that we get communicate with family or friends, things of that nature. And it is what I would like to call the evolution of the internet. Now when I say internet, what comes to your mind? The old modem dial, dialing up. That was the first time I accessed the internet, but it's much different now. In what way, are you asking? How is it different? Well, the way that we access it. We access via mobile device. 60% of the time, content that we consume is going to be consumed on a mobile device. That's much different than the first time you accessed the internet, isn't it, Cody? Do you remember the first time you accessed it? You were probably 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, probably around that.
It took you 45 minutes to get to a web page. It was a lot different, right? So everything's changing, and it's changing at an exponential rate, and it's exponentializing. I think think I just made that word up. But you get my drift. The quicker, the faster we evolve, the faster we're able to evolve. So therefore, things are changing at such a rapid pace. And the most noticeable thing that I've seen is how we're consuming content, as I said before. Now, a lot of people refer to these platforms as that we're consuming this content on as social media platforms. But in my opinion, it's simply the evolution of the internet. Because what is the internet in its purest form? It's a place that you go to get answers, to be entertained, or to be educated, right? That's the way I see it. Well, so you have to go somewhere for this. So most of the time, when the average person opens an app on their phone, they're not opening Internet Explorer or Chrome to consume this information. They're going to open Facebook, they're going to open Instagram. From there, they're able to access whatever they're looking to see. They're going to get the news, they're going to communicate with family members. What are some activities that people do? They're going to share photos, they're going to go, from there they could venture off to Forbes magazine or HG Home and Garden, because that's where these entities are going to place their content for distribution, because the whole theory is they need eyeballs to stay in business, right? Well, the eyeballs are on these social media platforms. So, my thought process is, or the thought process is, how can you capitalize on this as a business? Let's think back to the first form of content distribution in a technologically advanced world, or at least we thought at the time. It was the radio, right? Everyone would gather around the radio at the end of the day, and they would listen to the station, and they really had one or two choices of what they could listen to. And then you have these advertisers who thought, oh man, we got an enormous opportunity to capture a captive audience and get our message out and hopes to sell our product. It hasn't changed much. You still have a captive audience. You're still trying to sell a product. The only thing that's changed is the way in which you're doing it, the platforms in which you're distributing your content. So, as a business owner, we struggle to captivate that audience and to distribute this content in an engaging way in which people care. And half of that is companies like my company's fault, advertising agencies. Because I think when these social platforms first evolved, companies like mine that were traditional advertising agencies who were used to brokering media for business owners to be placed on platforms, traditional platforms, or what are now referred to as traditional platforms, such as television or radio, they saw this new emerging technology and they said, oh man, we can make $1 here. We can charge companies to manage their social media. It's the hot new hip new thing. And then they said, well, what's the cheapest way that internally we can do this but charge the client the most? What happened there is a product of what I call cookie cutter content. And that's where they go out and they scour the internet for articles that are relevant to the company that they're managing, and then they share links. And they not only do this on let's say company A's social media, but they do it on B and C and D. So there's no unique content. It's the same generic message being distributed for all these different companies. So how is that providing value or entertaining or educating? It's not. So that kind of brings me to my next point, and what I want people to realize is that as the owner of these social digital entities, you have the opportunity. You need to think about Facebook as Fox, or Facebook as the TV, and Instagram as the radio, because it's the same principles when you get down to the fundamentals. People are going to a place to consume content. But what you have to realize as a business owner is they have particular ways in which they want to consume this content. You have to respect the culture of Facebook. You have to respect the culture of Instagram. And by doing this, you'll engage fans and create a loyal brand ambassador, which is kind of the goal, I think, is to get people to market for you, to love your product, to share pictures of your product, to share your posts, or to engage in your product. So today I want to give you some actionable tips, some things that you can do some ways that you can think differently and kind of get that competitive advantage. Leverage yourself as a true thought leader on these social platforms for your industry, okay? The first thing is stop sharing other people's content as habit. So it's easy, or don't let your agency do it. If someone else is managing your content or managing your social platforms and they're sharing other people's content, how is that setting you apart? You want to be a thought leader. You want to be kind of set up as the expert, but how are you an expert on anything if you're sharing someone else's stuff? It can make you the repurposer of that content, but you're not really going to be what's red mean? Okay, let me get my thoughts there. Anyway, you won't be ever leveraged as an expert if you're sharing someone else's content. So what I challenge you to do is be the creator of your own content. Be your own channel on TV. You have the freedom to be Fox. You have the freedom to be an ESPN. What you need to think about is who your target demographic is, what their likes are, what their interests are, then create content around that. Let's say you're an insurance provider and I'm managing your social media, and you say, Red, how are you going to create content that's going to captivate my audience around insurance? I'm going to say, I'm not going to talk about insurance. I'm going to find things that people find relevant in this community, and I'm going to create content around that, and then put a little bit of salt about your brand, or a little bit of salt and pepper, dash a little bit about your brand, just so they know where the content's coming from. And that is how I think that you will be most effective leveraging these platforms. So it's your channel. You ultimately decide what's put out there, and you have the ability and the freedom to create whatever content you want. I just challenge you to make sure it's engaging and unique. Thank you. Try not to do that tomorrow.
Who's the evaluator during the evaluation?
Rachel's the first evaluator. And David's for second. Could be your-
David?
Yeah.
Okay, this is not my book, so I'm giving you a piece of paper to put my evaluation.
Okay, Red, thank you for that. It was very informative. Learned a few new tips that I can add to boosting my social media presence. All right, for our second speaker tonight is going to be Lawrence. He is doing his Competent Communicator #1. He's going back. So this is your third time through recently. So his title is I Am Who I Am?
Yeah, I am who I am.
I am who I am. Okay. Let's give a round of applause for Lawrence.
Back when I was young, there was a famous cartoon about a sailor and his girlfriend and his rivals and his grandfather and Sweet Pea, a little baby. You may recognize this thought because one of the most famous points in that was that I am what I am, and that's all what I am. I'm Popeye, the Sailor Man. Well, I too am a sailor man. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I have been a professional sailor for 40 years. I basically started way back in the last century as a canoe guide. My first time getting paid to be on the water. And I'll tell you, it was a wonderful experience, but it didn't pay very well. Lots of fun, but it didn't pay very well. So I eventually had to move on. The interesting thing is I learned over many years that all the most wonderful jobs working on the water didn't pay very well. If it was really fun, it didn't pay as well as something that was a little bit more hard. But there are many reasons why men and women go to sea. back in the days of old when the men were iron and the boats were wood, a lot of people went to sea to escape. They were being chased by the law, and they could go to sea and disappear for years, because many of the ships were gone for years. So, because of that, your sailors got a little bit less than wholesome name. When you're out at sea for years and years, and all you're seeing is a bunch of nasty, dirty sailors for long periods of time, and then you come in to port and there's wine, women, and song, well, maybe you might try to indulge a little bit more than you should. Again, this is why sailors might have gotten a less than, I should say, nefarious name? Kind of as a nefarious people? Something like that, sorry. But the times, they are a-changing. Now, sailors are looked on as a little bit more respectable than they did in the past. Many universities, especially in coastal communities, have programs where you can learn about getting into the maritime community. There is a national maritime school where you have to get a congressional appointment to actually go, like you would to West Point or any other of the famous military academies. But that's merchant marines. So there is still good reasons for us to go to sea. One of those is money. You can make pretty decent money with very little education. If you graduate from high school and go out to sea as a laborer, basically what they call an ordinary seaman, you're able to start off with a reasonable pay, maybe $30,000, $40,000 a year. And within a period of about 5 years, which would be the same as if you were going to an academy, you would be able to move up the ranks and you may be making a six-figure income. In the same time frame, somebody who goes to school for a regular job might get out of school and be lucky to make $60,000, $70,000 a year in their entry-level position over the same time period from when they graduated from high school. So there are reasons for people to go to sea. Now for me, I went to sea because of a dream. When I was 10 years old, my grandfather took me out deep sea fishing. And it was a very unusual experience. It felt so clean. The air was crisp. There was motion in the boat, but it didn't bother me. But the air was crisp and fresh. And it was like you could see, as far as you could see, there was beautiful water, waves, the sky and the water met with just the tiniest little tint of change in color. It was absolutely beautiful. And I decided at that point that I was going to go to sea. That that's what my job was going to be. Of course, from 10 years old till I actually did it, things changed. But I did eventually get out to sea. And I did learn that there were much better things. One of my favorite experiences from going to sea was being able to get up in the morning and watch a beautiful sunrise over the ocean. And then, before I go to bed at night, watch a beautiful sunset over the ocean. And I never had to go more than 1,000 feet from my home. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to have a really exciting, exotic experience in your life, I recommend becoming a professional sailor. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Lawrence, for doing a talk speech on that. It was very good, as always. Always enjoy hearing you speak. So that ends the speeches for tonight. Now we go on to my favorite area, and that is table topics, led by Justin Gish.
Justin Cody. Hello, Toastmasters. It's time to start table topics. Do I have any volunteers? Not all at once. Go ahead, Cody. It's the year 2024. You just won the presidential election. Address the nation with your victory speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited today. It's an important day in the history of the United States, and I get to be a part of it. Just want to thank you all for your support, standing behind me through all of the slander campaigns that I had to go against, as you now know. And just really want to thank you. You guys helped me get through this time, and it's going to be a good time. I'm going to really change the things that everyone wants to see change. We're going to move forward together. We're going to make America greater again. And it's a great time to be an American, and I'm glad that I can now lead us into the future, and it's going to be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cody. David? The nefarious Canadian military is reportedly massing our northern border. Address the nation's concerns.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and our guests. I can assure you tonight that there is nothing to be afraid of. Those Mounties are not coming 1 foot on American soil. Okay, we've got all of our defenses positioned. Everything's been reviewed. Our top generals are on the job, and I want the American people to know that they can trust this administration and the leadership of our military. I want you all to go in your closets and get your guns and bear arms and be ready to fight back if it comes to that, but I can assure you that it won't. So you can rest in peace tonight. God bless America.
Thank you, David. I feel much safer. And I liked your, this was very, was it W that did this a lot?
W.
That was great.
W.
All right, another volunteer?
I'll do it.
All right, our guest. Come on, Mike. Pick out a good one here. So, it's Thanksgiving Day. Pardon the turkeys, gobbler and cobbler.
All right. All right. It's Thanksgiving Day. I think we all are very blessed to be here. And I have in front of me a beautiful turkey. And I guess I'm supposed to bless his gobbler. Of course I'm supposed to. That's what everyone does on Thanksgiving. You bless the turkey's gobbler. And a cobbler, I suppose, is that someone who makes shoes or something? I'm not exactly sure, but turkeys need shoes too. So we'd like to bless the cobbler for the turkey as well as the turkey's gobbler. I guess that's the gizzard. I'm not a turkey expert. I don't know the anatomy. But I guess I encourage us all to be very thankful for all that we have for this great dinner, and I'm sure you all will be able to enjoy enthusiastically this wonderful event that we've come here to gather around. So thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
That was tough.
Another volunteer, please.
All good.
All right, Ren. Vice President Johnny Depp is embroiled in scandal. He's accused of accepting cash payments from organized crime in exchange for political favors. Address the nation.
Thank you, Mr. America, we knew Johnny Depp was up to no good. He stole the loot in the Pirates of the Caribbean. In Pirates of the Caribbean 2, he stole the loot again. And in Pirates of the Caribbean 3, he stole the loot again. What did you expect from a crook, from a thief, from a scoundrel? He had no business pirating the Black Pearl, captaining the Black Pearl, and he had no business leading this country's investigation into more Black Pearls. I think that it's important we learn a lesson from this. You do not trust a pirate. Pirates have been pirating the sea since the beginning of time, carrying a bad reputation. And we knew we wanted to take a chance. America is about a chance. But we shouldn't have given a chance to that pirate, Justin. It was a bad idea. And in Pirates of the Caribbean 4, he stole the goal again. What did we learn from this? Thank you.
Just not sure why you chose him as your running mate.
Me neither.
All right, so we need to run to, okay. It's about time for general evaluation. I'll stop it there.
I think Justin this back.
Thank you. Toastmaster.
All right. Justin, thank you for table talks tonight. That brings us now to the general evaluator. And our general evaluator tonight is Maurice.
Okay, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, as far as the meeting in general is concerned, we started on time. We had a 5-minute recess to fill in some positions, some roles that weren't filled. But then we carried on with the regular meeting and went over any business issues that we have. And also, I don't know if this is an issue or not. We did the pledge late, but I don't know whether or not it's, when's the right time or what's the wrong time to do the pledge. So anyway, the meeting went on smoothly, and the lectern was not unoccupied for too long a time. This is one of the better meetings as far as the lectern being occupied, between switching between roles and speakers. At this time, if I'm not being nefarious, I would like to go to the first evaluator for the first speech, which is Ren's speech. The first evaluator is Rachel.
I have the pleasure tonight of providing some feedback on Ren's speech. Times that are changing. His goal tonight was to communicate his speech also, not just in words, but also through his body language. So for the first guideline, topic selection, I put satisfactory. The concept I think was very difficult at times to put into body language. For preparation, I put excellent as always. For manner, I put confident and enthusiastic, 5 stars. For posture, I put poised and balanced. You always appeared very collected and calm and
Don't answer.
no, it didn't come across that way to us. I felt you certainly weren't hiding behind this guy. For gestures, I put natural and evocative. I think you did a great job in bringing us into your speech. For body movement, purposeful and smooth. Eye contact, established visual bonds. Facial expression, animated, friendly, and genuine. For speech purpose, I put clear. I think I wasn't quite sure where you were going with everything, but I also was very focused on your body language. For speech organization, I put satisfactory as well. What could the speaker have done differently to make the speech more effective? A small thing that I noticed was you did this at times, a little toe tap, and it sort of took a moment and took you back away from us instead of bringing your presence to engage with us. But there was a lot of positives during your speech that I enjoyed. By immediately coming over and engaging with us, I really enjoyed that. I think you did a great job in matching your, what is it called, eye contact with your gestures that you were doing. And I also enjoyed how when you were providing direct feedback for us, you chose to stand behind the lectern in more of a place of authority, whereas before you said you wanted to engage with us and you chose to stand outside. One possibility could be in ending. If you had thought about possibly ending by engaging with us as well, that could have been an option, or if you prefer to stand behind the lectern and end as an expert. But overall, your natural energy came through and you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Now for the second evaluator, which is David, he will be evaluating Lawrence's pocket speech.
All right, I'm David Ryan. I've got the pleasure to evaluate Lawrence's icebreaker speech. I am what I am. I am who I am. Excuse me. I did watch Popeye when I was younger, so cartoon spans generations. So I thought, obviously, look, this is not Lawrence's first time doing a speech, and so the strong points he already had was a lot of natural confidence, moved about the room, well engaged the audience, lots of eye contact, gestures. He moved around and wasn't stationary. I thought, as far as how well I got to know Lawrence through the speech, I would have liked a little more detail about his personal life, a little more detail around the stories. He got there in the end, but I felt like I learned a lot about sailing and the history of sailing, and then at the very end we got to know a little bit about Lawrence. So I would have liked that to be a little more woven into the middle of the speech. Adequate preparation. Yes, I didn't use any notes. Lawrence is always very clear and audible. It's not hard to understand him. Uses a lot of, I guess, fluctuation in tone and volume, ramping speed up and down, and it captures the attention of the audience. I noticed he did that one specific time, talking about going out to sea and being out for years. He had talked about, just the intro was good, the Popeye intro, and then when he started off into that, he really kind of changed his inflection on being out to sea for a really long time. So the speech did have an opening, body, and conclusion. The opening story about Popeye, the body more about a little more substance and background about sailing, and then the conclusion was a little bit more of his personal aspect and why he recommends getting out at sea, and what he gets some insight of what he learned from that at a young age. What could the speaker have done differently? Like I said, just woven a little more personal detail into the speech. But overall, it was a great speech, very well presented, and very entertaining. Thank you, Lawrence.
So at this time, we'll have the timers report with Yu Ying.
First we are running, so, and 8 minutes, 30 seconds. Lawrence is 7 minutes. Table topic, Cody is 58 seconds. David 53 seconds. Mike is 1 minute 6 seconds. And Ryan is 1 minute 23 seconds. The evaluation Rachel is 2 minutes 52 seconds. David is 2 minutes 53 seconds.
All right, thank you, Yu Ying. At this time, we'll have the grammarian's report with Mike.
All right. As Toastmaster, Cody did not say any ums or ahs at all. He was also very good at the table topics in that same way. Ren, I caught you with 4 ums during your first speech. The second speech, Lawrence, I caught you with 1 and then David, I caught you with 1 as table topics, and then I caught you with 3 as an evaluator, and then you also used a couple of times during your evaluation. I caught myself for sure with at least 3 or 4 ums or ahs when I was up there. Rachel, I caught you with 4 ums or ahs. As for the word of the day, Maurice said it once. Lawrence got nefarious once as well, and then Justin also opened up table topics with nefarious. And as for uses of the language that I appreciated, I thought Lawrence did a great job describing the crisp ocean air and the tint of the sunset. I thought it was very descriptive. And I appreciated Ren's use of the word exponentializing. I thought that was a highlight for the speech.
Is that
Well, it could be.
Throw that out there for you.
All right, thank you, Mike. This concludes the general evaluation, and I would like to relinquish the lectern back to Cody.
Okay, Brent, did you have an educational overview?
I do.
Okay, so we're now going to do the educational overview.
Thanks, sir. So, for education, I would like to share something with you guys. I've been recently doing a lot of planning for myself for 2018. I got some really lofty goals, and I feel like in order to get and reach your goals, you have to have them first, right? I meet with a lot of people, and I have some colleagues that they want to meet with me for sales coaching for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I always ask them, the first thing I ask them, what are your goals? You would be so surprised at how many people do not have goals. And then the second problem we encounter after that is they don't know how to set goals. So I want you to think about this with your life. If you have goals, everybody has a purpose, right? Hopefully everyone in here has a purpose. To fulfill that purpose, you've got to have goals. Okay, you can't, if your goal is to wake up in the morning and go cook breakfast, well, first you gotta have a way to get there. There's a path to cook breakfast. You gotta get out of bed, you gotta make your bed, you gotta personal hygiene, you gotta turn on the stove, you gotta scramble the eggs. So all of these things get you from point A to point B, right? So think about this in life. If you have a purpose and you wanna fulfill this purpose, you must have goals. Think of a ship leaving the harbor. Two ships, they leave at the same time. One has a clear-cut map. They know what they're gonna do. There's a checklist. They know what they're gonna go. They've charted their course. They'll get there 9 times out of 10. Think of the captain that boards the ship, gives the crew no instructions, does not have a charted course. He just says, hey, we're going to Antarctica. What are the chances he makes it there? Slim to none. The one over here with goals and a charted course makes it every time. The one without a charted course makes it 0 times. So think about that. If you do have a purpose, some people are just happy floating through life. Some people are very intentful and very driven. If you're intentful, driven, you have a purpose, set goals. If you need help understanding how to set goals, I'll be happy to help you. But setting goals has been the game changer in my life. Reverse engineer the goals, understand how to get there. That's
Thank you, Ren.
Yes, sir.
Always good to be reminded about goal setting, and I'm sure all of you here have the goal of getting 10 speeches, so listen to Ren, add that to your goal list, and let's have some more competent communicators so we can get some more awards for our club. Going into awards, we do not have any for tonight, so we will move on. Let's go over the agenda. So, VP of Education, Ewing, I'm going to fill in the agenda for next week.
I could add to the table topic, must.
Okay.
Who wants to be a speaker?
Well, I think the 2 speakers are already scheduled for next week.
Already
You got
scheduled?
you got David Monroe and
Uh-huh.
Luke Green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Luke's gonna be coming back. He just got back from wherever it was he was.
Yeah, right into it.
Moderator,
Makes sense,
and-
right?
Oh, Toastmaster. Toastmaster. Who wants to be a Toastmaster?
I'll take it.
Okay.
I would do topic master.
Nope, too late.
Someone already took that?
I signed up for that this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean. What do we need then? I'll do it.
Evaluators.
Moderator?
What else do we need?
You want?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Challenge yourself. Set goals.
So get awkward. Get uncomfortable. All right, man.
One
Okay.
more. I need one more. You got it?
I'll do the evaluation.
Okay. And then that's Toastmaster Justin. Oh, general evaluator. General evaluator.
We could probably throw Thomas Jester on.
Thomas.
Oh,
Thomas.
Elected, duly elected.
okay.
All right, thank you, Ewing. We have some.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
You know?
go ahead, Luke.
Remember, folks, in easy speak, it is very easy for you to go in and volunteer for what you want to do ahead of time.
In advance.
In advance, because Ewing is working very hard to keep up with this, and as long as she opens up the next meetings ahead of time, we can go in and sign up maybe 1 or 2 weeks in advance. She doesn't even have to go in and assign people positions. She can just go in and open the program.
Okay.
And 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time, and then we can all go in and say, well, you know, I want to do this speech. I can just go into Easy Speak and plug myself in. And that way it makes it very easy for her to schedule us, because there'll be less that has to be done at the meeting. And also it gives us the chance to get the position we want before somebody else volunteers to do it.
All
Thank you, Lawrence. It's good advice. That is sweet. All right, any comments? All right, you got something?
No, I'm
Oh.
good, thank you.
All right, we'll now adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
I did this online.
Yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
tried to do this,
Okay.
but the problem was I couldn't get into the only Adobe I have does not let me edit.
Oh, okay.
And so I tried to copy it to something else. It came out like HTML with all this weirdness in there.
Oh, okay.
And so it just was horrible. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on all that. I still have the original
Okay.
online that I can look at and print
Okay.
if I need to.
Alrighty.
But that's my thoughts.
All right.
These are